turned on, so we're gonna, nice, so it's live. Excellent. So this is the first one. So if anything doesn't work, you are just going to blame some of those, I don't know, some of the goblins, some of the electronic goblins. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes just to see, give everyone a chance to kind of come on. Sorry, I'm starting actually like a minute late. I'm gonna get better at it. I do have the questions pulled up, so at least I do have that going. And we'll just wait a couple minutes for everybody, and I'll see if I can actually get the chat, because I know that there's actually an interactive chat feature. So if anyone maybe did not get to put their questions in, that you did not submit them on time, that maybe I'll be able to find the chat so that I can answer any of your questions tonight while we are going through the call. And what I will do, and what I've seen a lot of other people do, is they have someone else kind of look at the chat so that they can kind of keep working on the live video side. And so we may be able to do something like that in the future. Maybe I'll get Yams to be able to do that, but probably not. Probably not. And I'll tell you why another time, because she's actually on here. So if you were not familiar, of course, this is a part of You Forecast Hope. I did try to embed this link in the membership site. If you're able to watch this video, it's YouTube live because I'm using the Hangouts, and then we'll put it in the membership. The good news is the membership site is free. All you have to do is go to forecasthope.com, sign up, get your free membership. And in there, we'll do these events. So on the first Thursday of each month, we're going to have a live confidence, strategies, and results coaching session. We'll do that for 1 hour, where I just answer any questions that you guys have for you. We'll do the next Thursday. So the second Thursday of each month, we'll have a book kind of strategy session where I just go over some of the books that I'm reading, some of the stuff I pulled out of it. I'll share the books with you guys so that if you want to read ahead of time, or really just kind of go over anything that you thought maybe was valuable. And then the third Thursday of each month, we're going to try to start doing what I'll call like a hot seat mastermind, where if you're familiar with that, you just get one person and then they would get to kind of review anything that is a goal that they want to achieve. So we just give one person a focused hour where we all focus on how to help that person to accomplish their goals and change their overall results. So I do hope that you guys are able to come to those as we start growing this. And if you have any questions, I will be trying to look in the chat, but if I don't respond, it's because I cannot see it. And I just want to let you know that ahead of time. So first and foremost, we'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions, and then we'll just go until they're gone. We'll give up to an hour for that, but realistically, a lot of people are doing like Christmas shopping and stuff, and then we just kind of put this out there. So right now we have like 6 or 7 questions in the queue, and we'll just really see how long it overall takes for us to go through it. And I will, depending on them, I'll just kind of leave them out there. So the very first question that we were given was related to time management. And this person is looking to pass all parts of the CPA exam within 1 year. And so they were just really trying to figure out, how do I go about creating the schedule? Like, I have a bunch of kids, I have a full-time job, I have a lot of commitments. How do I figure out how to accomplish this goal I'm trying to achieve while spinning all these other plates? And I think that that's one of the things that we all really can appreciate. I mean, all of us are probably wearing at least like 4 or 5 hats on any given day. And sometimes we feel like shifting some of them. And I was actually reading a pretty interesting article that was just talking about how salespeople, how they spend a lot of the times being extroverts and kind of going the extra mile and really striking up conversations, that they really exhaust that whole talkative. And most of the time when they go home, they just want to kind of sit quietly in the corner with a good book. And it was actually just the overall balance that each of us try to achieve that I always find kind of fascinating, that even though we're not thinking about it on a very conscious level, that subconsciously we're always trying to seek this balance. And whenever you feel out of balance, when you feel out of whack, that maybe you're doing something that you feel you need to do, but the things that you want to do are on the back burner, or maybe you feel that I'm really committed to something like this. Like, I commonly hear people, they'll talk about, well, I have my kids and I really want to provide for them, but at the same time, I really want to be there with them. And it's really hard for me to figure out how to do the both, that I can be with them, which is wonderful, and we have a great time together. But then it's like, how do we pay the bills so I can provide for them? And so anytime that you find yourself kind of going through this tug of war internally, it really is just taking a moment and let's just say that whatever your priorities are, that you are not working on the first one. So when we're talking about time management, very simply, you always have to understand that anytime I talk to someone, the first thing that I like to find out is kind of what are the dreams, what are the goals, what are they working on, and then how you spend your time in your day, because you'll be surprised at how often those things don't line up. That someone will say that my family is really important to me, and then we talk about what they do in their day, and they don't spend much time at all with their family, and so they end up having that time management feeling. Or they'll say, I really want to write a book. Like, this is really important to me. I have to get my voice out. There's a message that I have to convey to people. And then I'll be like, okay, well, how many words have you written in the last week? And they'll be like, I just don't have the time to write anything. And so my pages is empty, but I have this book inside of me. And so whenever I get the time management question, you find out what you want to do. So first and foremost, I want you just to write down what it is you truly want to do. And I guess what we're saying in the question is you want to study for your CPA exams, if that's really important to you. And then the next thing you'd want to do is write down what it is that I have to do to accomplish that goal. And then I want you next to that to write down how much time you spend on each of those activities. And then you just tally it up, and you decide whether that number is accurate, whether you can accomplish the goal that you want, or whether that number is telling in the sense that you are not going to be able to accomplish the goal because of the way that you're spending your time. So then after that, I want you to then, let's say on the right half of the paper, I want you to write down everything that you do in any given day. I want you just to list off whatever it is that you do. You can put everything from shower, brush my teeth to make my coffee. I mean, you can write down anything. And then I would like you, if possible, to kind of bucket them in like 5 little buckets. And we'll say like work, and we'll say personal, family, and we can say, I don't know, like fitness, right? Just however it works for you, or leisure. And then I want you to put them in these buckets. And then I want you to see which bucket you spend the most of your time. And then you're naturally going to understand that if you want to spend more time focusing on accomplishing whatever your goal is, in this case, this person wants to study for the CPA, then very clearly you have to see which buckets can I take some time out of. And honestly, you're going to say, well, there's some buckets that I just can't. Like, there's nothing I could change. And I'm like, that's fine. We just have to understand what that implies. Then maybe your number one goal really isn't studying or sitting and for your CPA. Maybe your number one goal actually is whatever it is that you feel you cannot separate from, at least at this time. And so when you have this list, so you have how much time you spend on your goal, you have how much time you spend doing everything else, and then you're going to just start picking one thing from, let's start with the most wasteful category. So if you have a category where it's leisure and you watch TV and you play games on your phone and you find yourself doing all sorts of extracurricular activities, then maybe we're able to cut one of those in half, where we just simply say, you know what, I spend 30 minutes on this, I'm only going to spend 15. Or I spend an hour on this, I'm only going to spend 30. And then you have to give that time to whatever your goal is, whatever it is that you're trying to study. And the temptation, of course, is to use that time on something else. Like, well, if I could do this one or two things, then that will free up a lot more of my time. And while I appreciate the overall ambition, I would encourage you to devote the time just straight to focusing on studying for your exam. And the reason is very simple. Whenever you're trying to change a habit, whenever you're trying to do something different, you always want to make sure that you give yourself enough of a window where it's like, I'm enjoying doing this. And then your mind's like, I really liked studying for the exam. I felt like we were accomplishing something. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel and all that beautiful stuff. And then your mind starts to like nudge you where it's like, we should study some more. And you'll find that what happens with most of us is we don't spend any time doing what our goal is, So our mind never understands that we're really serious or very interested in doing it. So you just want to make sure that you give yourself that wiggle room where it's like, okay, I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it, I'm seeing some results, things are feeling really good inside, and now I want to do it more often. And then you're going to, in the same sense, be like, okay, well, now I don't want to spend as much time in the leisure because it's taking away from this cool thing that I like doing. And so you just want to make sure that you have that overall balance. And so I encourage you to siphon a little bit of time as you can, and then kind of build it up and ramp it up. And then when you, let's say, pass your exam or you accomplish that goal, well, now you have the choice of, okay, I have this productive time, I should do something else productive, or I can put it back in leisure and all these other places I took it out of. And of course, I encourage you to keep that ball rolling and just work on your next goal. There's some quote that basically says, when you're done growing, when you're done changing, when you're done striving, then you're dead. And so I just encourage you to continue building on the progress that you have. And so that is what I would recommend for time management. And I'll probably make a couple tools as we talk about this. I'm just going to jot down a couple notes from like, well, maybe I can make that tool for you just to make it a little bit easier. And I'll put that in the membership site as well. Okay, and so we'll move off from that one. Then we'll move on to our next question, which I think when I was looking at it, I was like, man, that's a tough question. Okay, so the next one is, how do I become mentally strong, right? So my understanding, and we'll just start kind of like me and you, we'll have this quick conversation where it's like, okay, well, what does mentally strong mean to you? Like I usually, if we were together, I would say, can you give me a person or a characteristic or a trait and one word that would help me to understand what you mean when you say mentally strong? So because I don't have that, I'm just going to describe what mentally strong means to me. And for that, there's this one quote. It's an African proverb, and I think Alexander the Great gets quoted, reference with it as well. But it's just the idea that I would rather be a lion led. Well, oh man, all right, I'm messing it up a little bit. Yeah, it's the idea that I'd rather be a lion led by sheep than sheep, or I'd rather be sheep led by a lion than a lion led by a sheep. I think I really butchered that, but it's really a mindset quote. And the way that I understand it is, it doesn't matter what maybe tools you have, right? That would be the physical appearance. So you look at a sheep very quickly. Let's just describe a sheep. Well, a sheep has no teeth, no claws, no speed, no ability to climb. They can't camouflage. They don't really do much as far as protecting themselves. And so if you think of a sheep, it's going to be the most defenseless creature that you will ever come across. And so if you're saying, I would rather be a sheep with a lion's mindset, where you're like a lion led by a sheep than a sheep led by a lion, then the idea is, even though you may look defenseless, even though you may seem easy target, that if you have the right mindset, then you can overcome those odds and more. And then the opposite is also true. So if you are a lion where you're ferocious, you have the claws, you have the speed, you have the strength, and you have the prestige, but you have the mindset of a sheep, then it just really doesn't matter that there's still a gap that you, even though you have all the tools, you have all of the abilities. I would liken this to like a prodigy, where everybody's like, oh, they have it all. They're going to be the next best fill in the blank. And then, 5, 10 years goes by and it's like, whatever happened to that prodigy? Well, he or she never panned out. And so when you ask me, well, how do I become mentally tough? That's usually what I'm thinking. I'm thinking very simply of, how do I have a lion's mindset? How do I have that killer instinct in me, even if I don't have the claws or the speed or whatever it is that maybe we think often is a trait of the lion, or a physical characteristic of the lion. And so very simply, you will find that whenever you look at any, and I mean any successful for person, you're going to find like two things that are always present. Number one is they have failed, and they have failed a lot, and they have failed spectacularly. But number two, you'll find that they don't care. They don't care what failure looks like, because failure is on the other half of success. That you can't find success without finding failure. That they are two halves of the same coin. And you often will hear me speak on balance and the way that that works in your life and within anything that you're trying to do, and your companies and your goals and your organizations, that it's the exact same thing. That if you want to find success and innovation, then you're going to have to find failure and setbacks. And if you want to, like, let's just say flip a coin, if you want to find heads, then you're going to have to be okay flipping some tails. But what ends up happening is people are like, well, I'm going to avoid finding tails. Well, realistically, you can't flip the coin. Then you're going to avoid finding heads as well, what you actually want. And so whenever I see someone that I admire, that I believe has that lion inside of them, where I rarely focus on whatever the skill sets and talents that the eyes would maybe tell you, that I always focus on their beliefs and their overall mindset. And so when I find someone that has that ferociousness of a lion, you often find that they have determination, resolve. They seek failure. They're okay listening to the thoughts of others without it necessarily changing their actual thoughts and opinions, but they're open-minded enough that they leave space for themselves to be wrong. That there's some sort of a bias where I forget the technical term, but it's just the idea that whatever you thought first is like the best idea ever. And even as you get more information, even as it becomes very clear that what you originally thought was not the right thing, that it just doesn't matter. That whatever you thought first is what you're going to hold on to. And I often find that those kind of people are mentally weak people. If you want to be mentally tough, you have to be comfortable being wrong. You have to be comfortable being outside of your comfort zone, and you have to be okay with uncertainty. And so when you say, okay, well, what do I want when I'm building my mental toughness? You want the ability to accept that you have fears, accept that you have self-doubts, and accept that you may not be always the smartest person in the room, but okay with the fact that you're going to excel in whatever your strengths are. You're going to add value to whatever the group is, and you don't need anyone or anything to confirm what it is that's going on with you. And I would say that, of course, there's always every one of your strengths can kind of tweak a little bit too far where it becomes a weakness, but is the overall idea that I'm confident in what I know and I'm okay admitting what I don't know. And I find that that is often the most mentally tough people. And you use Steve Jobs, right? Everybody kind of knows that he is not a programmer or an engineer by trade. That as a CEO, he was let go of Apple, and then he went to Pixar, where he didn't know anything about story writing, where he is very comfortable with whatever his strength is, which he would feel is focus and leadership, and that's okay, even if that means that he's standing with in a company that has little to do with anything that he actually can just do. Like he could not do the work of the average employee, but that's okay, because he's going to understand enough that they can work together, that he's going to ask enough questions and lean on enough advisors and resources to where he's able to make sound decisions. And so I would just always say, whenever you're trying to figure out, do I have a mental toughness that can get me from where I am now to where I want to go? I would say ask yourself, let's just say a quick 3 questions. Number one, why am I doing this? If you are doing it because you believe your parents or your significant other or society in general thinks it's a good idea, then you probably aren't mentally tough. You need external confirmation, that you need other people to let you know that you're doing a good job. Number two, if you want to see if you're mentally tough, I would just say, am I okay hearing the word no? Am I okay with being rejected? And am I okay just leaving my comfort zone? And for the sake of us in this first time, I'll define comfort zone. Comfort zone is basically everything that you do on a normal basis, and anything that you have not done will be outside of your comfort zone, right? Your comfort zone is called that because it is the same path that you take every time you go to work, is the same seat that you sit in when you go to the movies or you go to church or whatever, is the same time that you make phone calls, it's the same place that you go eat for lunch, this is your comfort zone. It's the habits that you currently have. And you have to be okay leaving those. And number three, and I would just say you'd want to have an inventor's mindset. And the way that I've always looked at it whenever I'm reading books on inventors, appreciating the inputs they have, is they're rarely appreciated while they're alive. That they just have something kind of deep inside of them that says, I have to, I need to, and I will do this. And it's not that they find out very quickly that they're right. They fail a lot, but it's the idea that I'm going to keep going as long as I have that burning inside of me. And it's not something that is taken, it's something that they grow. They adapt very well, they learn from their mistakes, and they keep going. So I would just encourage you that those are the three things that I would focus on when I'm trying to say, do I have a winner, or do I have a mental mindset that is tough, one that can endure and last for the long haul? Because again, we're trying to become champions of our life. And so I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that you're going to be able to pull this off in a day or a week. That realistically, you have room for 2 or 3 life goals, 2 or 3 things that I would just define as maybe going for legacy. And if you really want to have those, you've probably heard of the example of the jar with the stones and the small, medium rocks and the sand. You really have to put in those 2 or 3 big stones first. Then there's enough room for the little ones to kind of fall in between, and then the sand fills everything up. And unfortunately, most of us, because we don't have that screw you mentality to the world, we end up doing a lot of insignificant things in the short term, just to be completely honest, where we are losing sight of our overall long-term goals because we keep sacrificing and settling in the short term. So if you want to be able to accomplish whatever your goals are, then you really have to look for the long game. And you'll find that that is not always a very easy thing to do because we have daily issues. We have things that go on every day that require attention and sacrifice, but you'll find mentally tough people, they're willing to ride those waves and they're going to focus on whatever those 2 or 3 life goals are. And then they make decisions that are aligned with that just on a regular basis. And so it's just something that you always want to keep track of. And I think that answers that one. So I'm going to make a note as well. No, I don't think I'll have to. I think I actually already have a tool for that. If you go into the membership site, I think it's like the 12 beliefs of the successful. So I think I actually already have one for that, but I'll put a link in the video so that you'll be able to see it, that you'll be able to get it. And so you should be able to do something with that as well. I'm going to see very quickly if I'm able to find the chat just for a quick second to see. Okay, and so if anyone has just any questions or any thoughts, then you could put them in the chat and I'll look for them. And then we'll move on after I make the note, and I will give you the next one. Okay, so our next question is, I want to be more disciplined about becoming more healthy. And I want to write a short story. All right, and the number one word that we're going to use is fatigue. Okay, that's actually a good one. Now, I did notice that in that you actually have 2 things. When I think I was asking what, and I may have worded it funny, but I think I asked you what your number 1 is. Yeah, no, I didn't say 1. I just said what goal. I didn't put an S on what goal you have set for yourself. And when you're dealing with fatigue, I often find that you're usually trying to accomplish too many things at once. And you want to be able to be more disciplined related to health, which is a pretty big umbrella if you think about it, because it has everything in there from exercise to eating healthy to getting the proper amount of sleep to managing stress to, I mean, you just kind of keep going where there's a lot in what is like being healthy, drinking the right amount of water and meditation and just feeding your mind and all that stuff, where it's a lot. I mean, it really is very time consuming and a difficult task to build all of the habits that it takes to be healthy. And I can definitely understand this, the discipline aspect of it. Now, I will say that I generally don't, I mean, I just hate to say the word always, but I try. I really do try. So I'll at least say that in my perfect world, you would never have to use discipline when it comes to making any changes in your life. It comes to being healthy and all that stuff. And I talk, and I'll actually pull some of these from my book Champion and Change, because I go over a lot of different techniques, because I have found that there's like a lot of studies that say if you're ever using discipline and willpower and any exhaustible resource that is something where you have to use your mental energy and you only have so much you can use each day and then you're done, that if you're using discipline, then it fades. And I'm trying to think of them, but there are some studies out there where it says like 6% of America makes a New Year's resolution every year, and only like 8% of people actually make it to the end of the year. And that of the 60% who make a resolution, only 60% of them, well, no, not only, but of the 60% that make a resolution, 60% of them quit that resolution within 30 days. So by February 1st, they've already quit their resolution. And the reason is very simple, that if you are doing something from a discipline or motivation standpoint, then you're going to find that that fades, and it usually fades in about a month, right? And you often hear that it takes like a month to make a habit or something like that. And it ends up being sort of like that, but basically what happens is in the first week you're like all gung-ho, that you are excited, you are stoked, that you've like bought all this amazing food, that you got your gym memberships and your outfits, and you're ready to go out there and crush it. And then you go so hard in the first week that you literally need like 2 days to recover from the amazing workout that you did, that your body is so sore that you cannot work out at all for the next like 2 to 4 days. And then it's sort of hard to kind of get back on that horse that third week, because you've already kind of had one great week and then you kind of reverted back to some old habits in that second week. And then before you know it, you only go like one day that third week, and then it's kind of done by the fourth week. And it's true really on all aspects of us making those changes. And you'll find that more often than not that it's really front loaded, where realistically we're all sitting there and we're doing stuff every day that we feel like, you know what? Like I really shouldn't be doing this. Like there's so much that I want to change in my life, so much that I could benefit from doing another way, that you end up saying, you know what, I'm going to make all these changes today. Like I can't go to sleep another night living the wrong way. And you're just not giving yourself a fair chance to succeed, right? Realistically, it took months, years, decades in some cases to get to wherever you're at, wherever we're at, where you made certain decisions and maybe you gained like 5 pounds a year or 10 pounds a year, and then you want to lose 5 pounds a week, right? That doesn't sound very even, doesn't sound very balanced. And of course, it's possible if you don't eat anything and you work out like 8 hours a day, but can I sustain that? And so that's part of the reason that I always encourage people to just leave the discipline approach, leave the willpower approaches, leave them at home, because they're not going to work for you in the long term, because they're exhaustive resources. And if I had to give you a very quick example, it's the idea that you wake up first thing in the morning and you feel amazing, and you end up eating like oatmeal for breakfast. And I mean plain oatmeal. You don't even put like a hint of flavor in there. You just eating oatmeal, and you drink your coffee black, and you like don't use any salts or sugars or anything whatsoever, because you're on it. Like you're for real. And then for lunch, you have a salad, and the salad you use like no dressing, because there's so many calories in dressing. Again, you're serious. And then you have like nuts for a snack and like raisins and some fruit, where you have an excellent day. Well, then it's like 10 o'clock at night, and you've mentally drained all of your discipline, all of your willpower. And so you end up snacking. And then the snack ends up turning into Like you black out and you come back and the whole bag of chips is gone, or you black out and you come back and all the cookies have been eaten, or you can't figure out exactly what happened. And that day is what happens with any of us when we use discipline. You can start off amazing. It's very easy to say no to stuff in the morning. Your discipline meter is full. You just went to sleep, you just filled it up. And as you say no to things throughout the day, it becomes empty. And then around like 10, 11 o'clock at night, you have no discipline left. So you end up eating all of that food that you didn't want to, and you end up adding all the calories from the great day. And what ends up happening? You feel discouraged. Like I did everything right all day, and here I am late in the evening, and I got nothing to show for it. Like, that hurts. Like that, I don't want to do that. I might as well just eat what I want to eat if that's what has to happen. And that's what, ends up happening for most of us. And when you're talking about working out and exercising, or whether you're talking about getting the proper amount of sleep, it's just very difficult if you want to force yourself to do anything. And so realistically, the best approach and the non-disciplined approach is to put the systems and processes in place that kind of automates as much of your decision making as you can. That anytime you deal with any sort of a transition, any sort of a decision making point, and this is like a Six Sigma, Lean Six kind of a principle, where anytime there is a change of hands where someone can make a choice, there is the possibility of them making the wrong choice. And that's true for you and your goals and the decisions that you're making as well. So if you want to set yourself up for success, the best thing that I can do is to say, well, if we want to work out in the morning, let's pack our bag the night before. Let's put our alarm, little things like you can put your alarm clock on the other side of the house. I think I even saw one where the alarm clock moves, and right, like it moves. Like if you try, basically when the alarm goes off, some wheels kind of pop out and it just starts rolling. And you have to chase after the alarm clock. And the idea is by the time you do all of that, then you're already out of bed and you might as well kind of get going. And when you start automating some of these, so the bag's already packed, the breakfast is already made, I got myself out of bed with this alarm clock, and maybe even add an accountability partner, just someone who you have to call every morning to say that I'm awake and I'm getting ready to go to the gym, or someone that you have to meet at the gym, right? That's why people work out with people. We have no problem letting ourselves down, but it's very difficult for us to let other people down. And a lot of that has to just do with the way that they perceive us and us not wanting to taint that perception. Yeah, taint's a good word. And so if you put the systems in place, see, now it's not about being more disciplined. Now I've set it up where it's very easy for me to do exactly what I want, and it's extremely difficult for me not to. There's a lot of manipulation and hoops that I have to jump through to stay in bed. And it's very easy for me just to get out of bed. I already got the clothes packed, I already got the person I got to call, and they're going to call me like every 2 minutes if I don't call them. And if they don't see me at the gym, or I don't send them a picture of me at the gym, or whatever I have to do, then they're going to start harassing me again, where it's very difficult for you to just sleep in. And when it comes to the food, it's a very similar technique where you just throw away. I know, right? Like, hey, throw it away. Yeah, well, give it away. Maybe that would be better, right? You feel better with that. Give it away, but realistically, just get rid of all the food that you don't want to eat anymore in your house, because it's just one of those things that whatever it is, and I mean whatever it is, if it's in your house, you're going to eat it at some point. I mean, it's in your house. That seems pretty natural that if the food's in my house, I'm going to eat it. So if you don't want to eat the food, then throw it away. And I will tell you that I'm a huge Skittles fan. And I had a moment of weakness where I bought myself like a pound of Skittles, but it was BOGO. So I got 2 pounds of Skittles. And the reason is, like the reason for me is always, well, a pound of Skittles is like $2 and some change. And the little tiny pack of Skittles is like $1 and some change. It just seems like I should always get the pound. If I'm gonna cheat, I might as well be like fiscally responsible with it. Well, I ate most of the first bag, and then somewhere along the way, I started, maybe like the next morning when I had like my full meter of discipline willpower, where I just threw the other bag away. I threw the other bag away in my strongest moment so that later on in the evening, I wouldn't be looking for it. And I was actually very upset with myself that I threw away that other bag of Skittles. I was like, what were you thinking? Like, you should have at least taken a handful out. Like, I was so upset with myself in the evening, but I had the process in place where I just threw it away. And I tell you that story because it's never about being perfect, because that's unreasonable, that's unrealistic. You're going to have lapses, you're going to make some decisions. It's really about, well, what am I going to do now? And oftentimes, if you made a bad decision in one of your mentally weak points that you drained all of your discipline and willpower, then when it's full, make the right decision. And so that's what I did. I threw it away the next morning, and then I was looking for it the next evening, but I was able to sustain, and I haven't bought another bag in several months now. Like, I'm actually doing pretty good with it. And of course, when you go shopping, the idea is that you make a list so that you just get what you need. It's not a decision-making process. Now I have my list and I just check off my list, and I'm able to get exactly what I want, and then I leave. And if you are even worried about doing that, there are some stores that have the ability for you to send them exactly what you want, and they will mail it to you, or they will have someone deliver it, or they'll have it ready for pickup when you come to the front of the counter, where you literally can put enough systems in place that remove any decision-making point, that you're able to do exactly what you want to do. Because again, the goal is not for us to use discipline and willpower. The goal is for us to put the processes in place that automates it and makes it very easy for us to make the right decision. And so that is what your overall goal, whenever you're trying to accomplish something, is you want to make it very easy to do what you want to do and very difficult not to. And one of the more tougher ones was someone who's like, "Hey, I want to, write a book." You said you want to write some short stories. The best way I can say to do that is you just want to make sure that you write something every day. And the reason that I say just something is because, and I'm guilty of it too, where we over exaggerate what we can do in 1 year, and we completely under exaggerate and miss the boat on what we can do in 3 to 5 years. So if you are saying, well, I want to write my book in, I don't know, like 3 months, and you're like, okay, that means I need to write 1,000 to 3,000 words a day. Okay, well, how has that been going for you so far, right? It's probably very difficult. But if instead you said, I'll just write 50 words or 100 words in a day, even though it seems like it's going to take a long time, it's going to take a shorter amount of time than the current trajectory that you may be on. Because if you haven't written anything because you want to write 1,000, 2,000 to 3,000 words a day, but if you write 100 words a day, and I'll let you in on a little secret, when you start writing and you only have the goal of 100, you'll write 150, 2, 3, and maybe even 1,000, because now you kind of got the juices flowing and you feel really good about it, and you're just like typing away. And when you come out of it, you may have like 1,000 words. But instead, if as long as you start with maybe like 50 or 100, then it's a very low bar. Whereas like, okay, I don't have much time left in my day, or I completely forgot about it and I just laid down and I was going to go to sleep. How long does it take you to write 50 words? How long does it take you to write 100 words? So it's like you're kind of gamifying it. And if you ever played a video game, then you know that the very first levels, the whole point of leveling up is a very easy bar where you can literally do almost nothing and it's going to jump you to the next level. And then as you become addicted to it, the game changes where now it takes hours and days to do the exact same thing that took minutes, because now you're addicted to it. And you'll find that people will pay money now. Like, that's what a lot of in-app purchase games do now. They say it will take 2 weeks to do something that used to take 1 day to do, but you can pay us like $5 and you can accomplish it in the same short amount of time that you used to. And the reason that works is because it's like your pleasure center in your brain. Whenever you do things that feels good, then your brain reminds you, hey, that felt really good, we should do that again. And it doesn't quite keep track of like how much longer it's taking, where now it's like 2 weeks versus it being 1 day. It's just like, hey, that felt really good, we need to level up again. And so I want you to do that with your writing and your short stories, where it's like, I'm only going to write like 50 or 100 words a day, but what will most likely happen is I'm going to write a lot more than that, because it just feels really good. And the good news is any day that you can't, well, you only have to write 50 or 100 words. So once you write the 50 or 100, then that counts as success. And as you build your successes, there's a Harvard journal that I had read that basically said, if you celebrate along the way, that your mind ends up like there's nothing your mind enjoys more than progress. And there's nothing, and then the opposite is obviously there's nothing that your mind dreads more than stagnation. And so it's why you kind of have this feeling that I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not moving anywhere. And then you start to feel overwhelmed and you start to feel discouraged because your mind's like, I want progress, I want something. And you're like, I want something too. Like, we should be able to do this. And you just really have to celebrate some of the small milestones. And as small as they are, they'll become, right? It takes 100 pennies to make a dollar. And no matter what, you can always get a dollar with 100 pennies. So let's just start stacking some pennies up. And if you feel like, again, we talked a little bit about the time management. If you feel like your time is being separated, just look back at that question and follow those recommendations, because that happens a lot where we just aren't spending enough time as we want to on the things that we should. And we're not being honest with ourselves in the sense that I got to let go of something, right? I mean, there's people depending on me and I made these commitments, but you know what? You got to let them go. You got to let some of them go. And if you don't want to, then you have to just accept the fact that, being healthy and, writing my book is not as high on my list as I thought it was. And you'll find that a lot of times we're dealing with the fear of acceptance and the fear of rejection, right? Two halves of the same coin, where we don't want to let other people down because we don't know how that will change their perception of us. And if they're worth being in your life, then it won't. And you find that all the time, that the more authentic that you can be, the more you're going to attract people like you to you. And the more you are like someone else and you're not being true to yourself, one, there's nothing more mentally draining than having to make a conscious decision, as we had already talked about. So what that means is, if someone is lying, they have to consciously think of what their response is every single time. They can't automate that response. So I'm not going to go as far as to say a person will necessarily be lying, but if you are not being authentic to yourself, then you are thinking about what you're going to say and what you're going to do every time before you do it, because it's not your natural reaction. It's not your natural response. You may be thinking, what would they do in my situation? How would they react to what I'm going to do? And these are decisions that you're draining yourself and your mental energy, which makes it very hard to do the things that you want to do. Because once you drain all your mental energy, you revert back to whatever status quo is. And so for most people, when you make a New Year's resolution, you drain all your mental energy. Status quo is not going to the gym and sleeping in. Status quo is eating the unhealthy food, is not eating like the salad and the stuff. And so you want to be able to make the right decisions long enough where that becomes your new subconscious, your new belief system. And so it's just definitely something that you would want to do. And again, I'll make a note on, sorry about that. And again, I'll make a note on a tool that I maybe can add. And I think I had one. I think I had one on like love or fear. Like, it's basically a love or fear assessment where you kind of see what decisions that you are making. All right. So the next question is, are there successful people that are known for being lazy? And are there successful people known for being lazy? I'm going to say, all right, so I'm big on words, so you're always going to hear me say this, but right, what is lazy? What is lazy and what does success mean to you? And I'm going to go ahead and say that you're most likely going to be talking about the generic term of lazy, where we're looking at someone and they're not doing a lot with their day, where they don't seem like they're as busy. Right? Busy is maybe the word that we associate with successful, but I'll just simply say that that's actually a misconception. That you will find that the most successful people guard their time and their schedule the most, that they actually don't waste and spend much time doing anything outside of what helps them accomplish those 2 or 3 life goals. And so what I want you to think when you're saying, is this person being lazy, or is this person being busy, that I would say that the person who is being lazy, as in the person who is not using their time the way that most of us do. We fill it up with all sorts of stuff. That person is actually focusing on the one or two things that matter. And I remember reading the book, the biography of Tesla, and he has a quote in there where he basically says, if you judge me by mental energy, then I'm one of the hardest working people that you'll ever meet. Because he said he spends a lot of time visualizing, creating in his mind his inventions, his thoughts, and really finalizing it before he ever puts a pen on paper of a blueprint. That he actually spends a lot of mental energy focusing on it. But he said, if you judge whether someone is lazy or busy by the stuff that they're doing, things like you'll totally think I'm lazy. Because when you look at me, I won't be doing as much stuff as other people. And the way I want you to think about being busy or lazy, I want you to think of it more like being in school and then the substitute teacher comes and they give you busy work. And it's like, okay, well, what does this busy work do? It just keeps you busy. It fills up the schedule, right? The teacher didn't want them to move on. The teacher wanted to teach everything, but they can't just let you sit around and do nothing. So you have a bunch of busy work, stuff that may not even be graded or count towards your grade, but it definitely isn't something that is moving you in the overall objective of learning whatever the core competencies are of whatever that grade level is. And I think a lot of people are living in that kind of a mindset where they have a lot of busy substitute teacher work and they're not really spending enough time working on their three core items. And you'll find that it always comes back to a lot of time management. So again, you'd go back to that first question, but realistically, if you are successful, then you are most likely doing two things. One, you're focusing a lot of your time on something that you're very passionate about. That generally speaking, if you're chasing money, then you won't find success because it's very difficult to be successful and do something that you don't enjoy. It's very difficult to be successful, as in like make a lot of money, right? In the sense that I'm just going to do whatever the new fad is. Because even though, like, for example, in what I do, we're coaching, right? So there are lots of different coaches from life coaches, results coaches, all sorts of names. And it's a very low bar to get into, right? Everybody can be a coach, and a lot of people are, but it's a equally low bar to leave out of, where people are coming in and are leaving every day because it's easy to get in, but it's very hard to stay and put in the work. And it would be something that you genuinely have to be passionate about to push through a lot of the difficulties and the opposition that you'll deal with. And you'll find that that's also true in your professional career. If you are trying to be, whether you're trying to be promoted or whether you're just trying to keep your job and retire after 30 years and be left alone. Either way, if you want to maintain it and you want to make it, then you're going to have to find something that you really are passionate about within your work. And I'm not talking about everything, because I already know that less than 30% of people say that they actually are happy in their work and in their personal life. So that's a completely different topic for another day. But the idea that I say no to a lot of stuff and I focus on the stuff that I want to do. I focus on the stuff that I enjoy doing, and I let that drive me through a lot of challenges and obstacles and oppositions. That is, to me, the sign of someone who is successful, someone who can endure a lot of those challenges and obstacles. And the sign, of lazy, right, generally speaking, is someone who's not doing a lot. But I also want to have you just understand that while the person may not be doing a lot, that they are doing what matters to them, which is something that all of us wish we could do more of. And so saying no to a lot of things doesn't make someone lazy. It just means that they are focused on what matters to them. And I'll tell you a quick story that where did I hear it? I think it was Darren Hardy. I think I had paid for one of his workshops or courses, and he had shared a story of Russell Branson where they're both being paid to speak at an event. And the person who was doing the event had already kind of threw out Branson's name, and so I guess he thought he was gonna get him no matter what. But they talked to him, and he just said no. He was just like, no, it's not within like my objective for this year, and so I can't do it. And they were like, okay, well, how about we pay you $100,000 to speak for 30 minutes? You fly in, and then you just kind of spend a couple hours where you answer some questions, and then we'll kind of keep it moving and we'll let you go. And he was like, no, he's like, they don't fit within the objective I have for this year. And then I think it ended up getting to the point where they're paying him like $500,000. And they said that he could just fly in on his private jet. They would pick him up from the hangar, take him to the event, let him speak for 20 minutes, and then he didn't have to talk to anybody. They would just put him back in the car, take him back to his hangar. He'd be back home, or he'd be at least back on his plane within 30 minutes. They said $500,000, 30 minutes. What do you say? And he said no. He was like, it just doesn't fit within my overall objective for this year. And I'm sure for a lot of us, we're thinking, well, what's the harm of 30 minutes? And dare I say that is going to be the difference between us and like a Richard Branson. When you're looking at someone who's successful, what appears to be lazy is just focus. It is determination. It is the mindset that if it doesn't fit within my 2 or 3, if it doesn't help me accomplish those 2 or 3 life goals, then I'm going to say flat out no. And we talk a lot about the idea that everything that you say yes to is something else that you're saying no to. But we often rationalize it as in the sense that it's not like I'm really saying no to something else. It's just that I have to work it in the schedule. And even though we can convince ourselves that it's just not the case, if you are saying yes to something, then you are flat out have to say no to something else. And whether it's the time that he had to take to prepare the speech, or whether it is just the fact that he lost that time flying and then the 30 minutes there, whatever it was, he just felt the cost was a lot greater than $500,000. Because again, what's money, right? Money is just something that we exchange to get something else. And it really is just, it's nothing more than that. I mean, I took a monetary thought class in one of my economics classes back in the day, and we were studying a culture that exchanged boulders. And the bigger the boulder, the more value it was worth. But as you can imagine, it's not a very practical way to exchange things. But if you have a very large boulder in front of your house, people gave you more stuff. And so over time, we figured, well, let's use kind of this paper stuff. It's a lot easier to carry around. And then you got the cards, and the cards, you don't have to carry anything around like that. There's like nothing there. But it's just whatever a culture or society is willing to exchange for something else. If you did not think you can exchange it, then you would not carry it around because it would be worthless, right? It's no different than some paper that your Monopoly money is printed on. You just know that you can't exchange Monopoly money for other stuff. So when you're talking about successful people being lazy, I would actually reframe the question and just say successful people are focused and unsuccessful people are busy. And I really want you to think of it like that. I want you to truly kind of grasp the idea that the time that you have on this earth is limited. And you really, if you don't focus on the 3 things that matter to you, then you're going to find you're all over the place. And then you'll end up on the last days with a lot of regret. And you just don't want to be there. And I'm just going to cut it straight with you guys because that's what we do, right? That's what we're here for. And I do have something on that, which I'll put in the show notes as well. And then we will do one last one. Okay, so this person was just asking, what is growth mindset and does it work as advertised? Fair question, because a lot of people are using this phrase. I've heard it used to describe like growing your customer base, where you're just growing it like in. I've heard it talk about sales. I've heard it kind of used in all sorts of different ways. So I can definitely get the need for clarity because I focus on 3 mindsets, right? So I do the grow. Well, I think it's more like 5, but there's like 3 core ones that then 2 branch out of. So the 3 core is fearless, growth, and execution. So those are my 3 core mindsets that I believe everything is built off upon. Where you want to get results, then it comes down to fearlessness, execution, and growth. And so you really want to have those mindsets. So when you talk about from a scientific perspective, where if you're looking at a study, generally speaking, a growth mindset is just the belief that I was born with the ability to develop the skills necessary to accomplish the goals and get the results that I want. That in a nutshell is what a growth mindset is. And when you see other examples and other stuff that people are talking about, that is more selling. That's a little bit fancier than the actual definition. The actual growth mindset is the belief that I can develop whatever skills and beliefs necessary to accomplish my goals. I can get from point A to point B. I can build that bridge. And so it's always number one on my list is always make sure that people that I work with have a growth mindset. They have to believe that they can develop the skills necessary to accomplish their goals. Because the opposite of that is you just believe that some people are born with it and some people aren't. And while it may be true that if you're born in a certain area with a certain race or country or religion or family and economic background, that it may be easier for you, right? Just statistically speaking, it doesn't mean that it's impossible for someone else. And if that is where someone is at, then I immediately just wash my hands and say, God bless you and good luck. Because there's nothing that we can do from that. If you believe that it's just everybody is rigid in the way that they are and that you cannot impact the world in any way, shape, or form, and that you just simply wake up and you exist, and if you end up getting a good deck of cards, then great, you win. And if you got a bad deck of cards, then you just like keep your head down and keep working until you can retire in 30 years, and then maybe you can start doing something that you want to do. I just don't feel that. I believe that there's enough examples out there of any background where, right, statistically speaking, if you have a child as a teenager, it makes it very difficult for you to have a certain life. Fair, true statement. But it doesn't make it impossible. It doesn't make it any less unreasonable for you to expect that of yourself. And that is, to me, what is the growth mindset. It's just the idea that as difficult as things may be, as difficult as things may seem, as unfair as things are, and that's an honest statement, that it doesn't change my effort and my resolve and my willingness to do what I can do to make my dream life a reality. And so for me, that is what a growth mindset is. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of gotten watered down in the way that it's being used all over the place because it is kind of a catchphrase. But really, it's just the ability for you to develop certain skills in the mindset. And so, and then when you're asking, does it work as advertised? I mean, there's lots of studies out there where I've read, most of them say it works to the point that I believe there's schools that spend like millions of dollars every year on developing growth mindsets in the youth. And the reason I say that is I remember reading a study that basically took some 10th graders, and it found that the kids who had a growth mindset were the idea that I can develop and grow whatever I need to accomplish my goals, that they were more successful than people who did not have it. And then when they dug deeper, they found that the more money you had, the more likely you were to have a growth mindset. So the more likely you were to be successful. And in this sense, we're just talking about getting A's and B's in school, right? That is how you measure success for a student. Well, you then find that even though there's fewer people who have a growth mindset in the poor aspect of the spectrum, the ones that had a growth mindset, even though they were poor, performed on the same level as those who were rich and had more advantages. They were the same level. Because if you believe that you have the ability to shape and alter your world around you, you just have this fire inside of you that I can do something about the way the world is, that I can change something about my life, or I can touch someone else's life. Like, I don't have to just accept the fact that I was born here in this family, in this situation, and statistically that means that I'm going to have this result, so that's what's going to happen. Right. I mean, that's just, it's just one of the, I mean, it really is one of those sad things where you're just like, hey, what's wrong with the world? Well, that's a small part of it, is that we've kind of been conditioned to where we just don't think we have the ability to control and affect as much as we actually can. And I'll give you a quick example, and then we'll kind of get going. So there was a point in time in my life where I was like, okay, well, if I want to change some of the systems that we have in our country, then I should, go into politics. And I slowly grew out of that because I realized that that is the false belief that we're being sold, that if you want to change something, you have to go in politics, change the laws. But when you look at Gandhi and you look at like Dr. King, that if you just genuinely believe that that fire inside of you has to be made into reality, then you will do what is necessary to make that a reality. You just, in the essence of your being, believe that I can do something to make this world better. And you may be crazy for a long time, but when it's all said and done, you'll find that a lot of people agree with you. And most of the time, everybody's thinking that this is wrong or this could be better, and they're just looking for someone to say something. And so when you could be that someone, that beacon, that hero, then you're able to create some change. Like the mistake that we often make is we think, oh, if I just had a little more time, or if I just had a little more money, or if I was in elected office, or if you always had something, then sure, it may make it easier, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible right now. And just not to allow procrastination to kind of disguise itself under rational and logic, but because realistically, your procrastination is actually a fear of something. And whether that is the fear of uncertainty, the fear of failure, just the overall fear of change, and just what it looks like in your life to go against society and the norms, you just really want to have that belief, that growth mindset, that I can change the life that I have. And there are definitely studies that talk about that. I've just mentioned one. And so I would definitely say that it works as advertised if you have the right definition. Now, if you're talking about someone saying growth mindset and you'll make a whole bunch of money overnight, that's probably not going to work as advertised, because that's just not what growth mindset is. And, that's just not how things work. But I guess that is it. So yeah, that's it. So we did the hour. I do appreciate all the questions and the time that you guys have given me. If there is anything at all that you're like, hey, this will be better or not, then just shoot me an email. It's Andre, UNDRE, at forecasthope.com, or you can join the group, forecasthope.com, the letter U, forecasthope.com, and you can join for free in the membership. And then there is a forum and a community in there, and you'll be able to just ask me any questions. I usually check in there every day. I'm spinning a lot of plates, as we had mentioned, where I'm building a lot of this stuff. But as soon as I'm able to kind of start automating different parts of it, simplifying it, then I'll be able to comment more often. But right now, I'm just kind of building it in there. So just as they say when you go to like a new store, kind of remodeling, pardon my mess. So just pardon my mess as you're in there. I'm always thankful for you guys' time together. Until next time, continue blessings on your journey to become the champion of your dream life.